Right, so it is 12 o'clock. 1 minute past 12, actually. Should we kick things off and open the door?
Headmaster's in the house.
Uh-oh. And he doesn't look like a hamster. How brilliant is that?
I've had the peas on the side of my face all morning, from about 4 o'clock this morning. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone.
I did get your text.
Sorry if I wake you up. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the 8th edition to the EV Cafe. It's actually a very warm one today, so if you're in the garden watching this, then quite frankly, I'm jealous. I think we all are. We can take the cafe outside. The cafe, especially for me, is certainly my highlight of the week, not only because it's the only time I get to see John with a silly background, although not so silly this time, but because of all of you wonderful attendees and fantastic panel of regulars and special guests that make my little office not feel so lonely anymore. Which I think is really prevalent today as we acknowledge the importance of this week, mental health awareness. And I think I can say on behalf of everyone on here today that we're all here for each other. And it's things like this, the cafe, that truly does show this. I think we can all agree is quite beautiful. I know I've said this before, but I just want to say it again. This isn't anything without you. It's all about you, us, the world connecting during these difficult times that can feel somewhat lonely from isolation, as well as keeping those all-important yet light-hearted conversations going. That's why we have Mr. Curtis here. Remember, even when the cafe shuts at 2 p.m, you can find most of us through LinkedIn, especially me, as my iPhone daily screen time reminds me. We actually have a mental health first aider as one of our resident panelists, the originale of the EV Cafe, Mr. Paul Kirby, who I know would be dying to say a few words on this matter. Paul, would you like to, over to you?
I would, and everybody, welcome again. This is a great chance to socially interact, which is so good for our mental health. And you may have noticed I've been posting videos on my daily commute, getting out and walking and enjoying and being kind to myself. And this week is Kindness Week, or Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're celebrating kindness, I should say. Now, statistics will tell you that 1 in every 4 people will suffer a mental health episode or an issue in any given year. There are other people out there that would say it's 1 in 1. And look, we hide these sorts of things from each other, don't we? I have many times in my life hidden stuff that has deeply affected me and I've been unable to cope. And it was only when unlocking that stuff that I began to gain some resemblance of normality, if that's what this is. So I would really encourage you, be kind to one another. And when you are feeling overwhelmed and, underloved, then reach out. Somebody on LinkedIn commented on another post and I put a comment on that, and I'm going to have a phone call with them this afternoon, just because people are in lockdown stir crazy and it's anxiety is rising as we look at returning to work. So please reach out. Do not underestimate your own mental health, and mental health is not something to be hidden away. We have all suffered from mental health issues. Reach out, be kind to one another, and let's really consider our mental health. And that's all we're going to say about that.
Excellent, Paul. Thank you very much. And I noticed your video this morning. Very nice. We're also joined by 2 other panelists. Sarah Sloman, otherwise known as the anchorwoman for the weekly EV News Round now, who actually stole the show of last week. If you didn't see it, it is on my YouTube page, and I'm going to cut it out of the EV Cafe and just have that news round as one video. None other than John Curtis. If you know, you know. Would you both like to say a brief hello to the lovely customers of the cafe?
Absolutely. Been quite excited about today. I'm really excited about data. I think the thing is about data that people don't know is that he was a really very misunderstood synthetic android, and he was created for good but not harnessed correctly, and it just led to wars. So let's love each other, let's love data, let's think more carefully about how we can apply data. I believe telematics, optimal charging, GPS tracking, budget, cost, time, data is the lifeblood of our industry. So let's today spend a couple of hours thinking about how best to roll it out, how to protect the consumer, and how to make all of our vehicles talk to one another for the greater good.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. I'm a bit upset you haven't got the Matrix background there, Sarah, if I'm honest.
Well, I wanted it, but I thought you guys were going to have it. So now I've got this whooshy thing.
And for those who don't know me by now, then I'm Johnny Berry, the Southern EV Manager for the Renault UK Fleet Department. I'm here to support in any way that I can for EV adoption, hence creating this lovely cafe along with my peers. I'm also the moderator, host and keeper of the time today. I'm also the one with the swollen face, because I do have a wisdom tooth being naughty, but I have got a bag of peas which happens to be green, so blurs into the background. It kind of takes away the swollenness. We'll also see my partner in crime, my northern counterpart, pop up from time to time live from the mailroom as he collects some of the questions raised in the chat box and the Q&A tab. Do you want to quickly come on and say hello to the lovely guests, Matthew? Live from the mailroom. That's not a mailroom.
I'm not in the mailroom yet. That's the coffee shop. I'm still in the coffee shop.
Get back to work.
Get back to work.
I'm skiving. Come on. There we go. Sorry. Back in the mailroom. Yeah. Back in the mailroom, enjoying a coffee, waiting for your questions. As I say, any questions, please add them to the Q&A tab, and I'll be collating them for the Q&A sessions. So we'll catch up with you later on.
Thanks, Matt. So for today's menu, as we've already mentioned, we'll be serving up data, big data, and so it gives me great pleasure to announce special guests of the week. They are EV data enthusiasts that play arguably the most important part in EV adoption. So joining us, the experts and John Curtis on the panel. First will be Rob Anderson from Cenex. Sorry, John, you know I love you. And closely followed by Matt.
He hasn't been introduced.
Oh, sorry, John. Go for it, mate. Sorry.
Rude.
It's all those love hearts. We're all starstruck.
How am I supposed to get a date if I don't even get a word in edgeways? Hello, everybody. So, John Curtis, EV ambassador. I'm an ambassador for Go Ultra Low. My job very much is about encouraging and enthusing people to try an electric vehicle. They are not the solution to everybody's problems and the world problems. But I tell you what, they are damn fun. I'll go away. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, John. Apologies again. So first will be Rob Anderson from Cenex, then closely followed by Matt Stevens, the Vice President of EV for GEOTAB. After they have shared their wisdom, knowledge, case studies, reports, insights, we will take the opportunity to allow you to ask them questions, of which we'll ask Matt to come live from the mailroom. And then after that, we will then ask Melanie Shufflebotham, the co-founder of Zap-Map, to share her thoughts on EV charging drawn from the Zap-Map dataset. So a really interesting and insightful afternoon ahead. So get your questions ready. Sarah will take us through a weekly briefing of all the latest news regarding zero-emission mobility a bit later on. We also have one other guest, Scott from Verta, who connects energy through to charging and everything in between, who will give us a balanced view on the value of data from both sides of the coin. And he will be joining us much later on in the show. So just other things that we'll be doing. So we will be opening up the marketplace again. So if you don't want to hear people take on the terror that is otherwise known as a 60-second challenge, then this is an opportunity for you to take a comfort break or top up your coffee. This, for those that don't know the marketplace, this is an opportunity we give 5 people to come off mute for no longer than 60 seconds and give us their best sales pitch ever. A loud klaxon will signal the end of their 60 seconds. It can be brutal, but they do know what they've signed up for. We do have this week's taken care of, but if you want to take part next week, then let anyone of us know. And I do want to give a quick reminder of how the EV Cafe works, especially for those newbies for today or on Zoom. There is a tab at the bottom which will allow you to open the chat box if it's not already open, and we'd advise keeping that open throughout the duration of the session. I see there's over 100 messages already. We would like to hear from you now, so if you could just share who you are and where you're from using the chat box, and we would really appreciate it. But please do chat amongst yourselves or privately using this panel, or to the panel using this. If you do find it distracting, however, especially when some of our guests are presenting, feel free to close it or ignore it. If you, however, have a question for the panel, then please click the Q&A tab, and we will endeavour to answer your question as soon as we can, either in the chat box, live, or in the mailroom. If you want to talk to us, because we are all human beings, apart from Sarah Sloman when she does the EV news round, then we will allow for some time at the end to take you off mute, and that way you can cover something we may have missed, challenge us, or just simply say hello to everyone from the cafe. I will ensure there is enough time for this. Heckling is allowed, by the way. And then quickly, just for the panel and people joining the panel, then it is back to school for you. If you want to talk, then please raise your hand on camera. This is to avoid crossing over each other. Yeah, whoever's first, my decision is final, or whatever. Lastly, I will be running slightly more polls than usual. As we all know, I love a good poll.
Hey!
P-O-L-L, not P-O-L-E. And seeing as this week is all about data, then I guess it's rude not to. The first one, however, is always a bit of fun. It's a fake news poll. And this week it's on Matt Stevens. So 3 facts, 1 is fake, and you decide. So on that note, 11 past, supposed to finish at 10 past 12. That's enough of me, quite frankly, rambling on. I would like to now hand over to our first special guest speaker of today, Mr. Robert Anderson from Cenex. Would you please like to go ahead and share your screen, Rob?
No problem at all. Will do. Let's get this show on the road, if it'll work. Let me chuck that into slideshow. Right, so thanks everyone, and thanks for giving me the chance to actually present here. I'm normally the one at the back with Scott Eady, either just drinking the coffee or stealing the sugar. So what I've been asked to do today is give you a bit of an overview into data, how it can be used, how it can help you take those first steps towards a low emission fleet. I'm always one for a bit of a good misquote, especially musical ones. So we'll start with Edwin Starr and data. You know, what is it good for? But we'll move on from that and now look at the great and the good of MC Hammer, or some may think of this one as the remix version of Sir Mix-a-Lot of we like big data and we cannot lie. And like you've probably got loads of data being collected on your vehicles, on your charging, on all sorts of aspects of your fleet. And it could be through telematics. It could be through, you know, your own Excel spreadsheets, accounting systems, or third-party providers. But it's not about the data you collect, although the data is important. So the question is, what data? What data are you collecting? And knowing the question you want answered will help you identify what data you need. I mean, this is a very quick list I threw together of potential data points that you've got or could have or could collect. The thing that we find in the work that we do as Cenex is it's not always in the same place. The fleet manager will have some of it. Sometimes with, as I mentioned, third-party providers. Some maybe with your facilities manager, some with accounts and finance. Some we find that are actually with the energy manager. So trying to get all that information together in one place can be tricky. Requires that thing called tact, which I think John Curtis knows about. But what do you do with it? You know, just having the data is one thing. What do you do with it? And how can it be useful for you? And that's really what the next few slides are going to show, is just highlight how Cenex use that data, or any of that sort of data, throughout our research and consultancy work. So at the very beginning, you think about the fleet. So using the fleet mix information, so types of vehicle you're running, plus the operational and cost data, you can then identify which low emission technologies are most appropriate for individual vehicle duty cycles. I mean, here's just 3 graphs from a recent analysis we did for a vehicle fleet of over 2,000 vehicles. I think they ranged from cars and light vans up to 44-ton trucks. We did a full in-depth analysis of, you know, available vehicle range, how far they could go, the sort of total cost of ownership savings, and the sort of emission savings. And over the course of that study, I think we identified something like 50% of the fleet could either go full electric or ultra low emission. But then it's looking after the vehicles and it's saying, right, we know we can replace them or that they are applicable to be replaced, but how do we go about that? How can we map that against vehicle introductions? And we've all seen recently new announcements of, you know, from Peugeot, Citroën, Vauxhall, VW, of new vans coming to market. And it's helping you understand where those are going to land versus your replacement cycle, so you can start to plan and roadmap, like this slide shows, roadmap against that, so you can start to get things in place and understand the costs of that. But it's not just about the vehicles. You've got to think about the charging as well, and using telematics, if you have it, you should be able to identify dwell times, dwell locations of your vehicles, and that can help you identify possible need for charging infrastructure, be it at depot or at drivers' homes, just by finding out where they're spending their time stopping. Who knows, a lot of them might be stopping at the EV cafe. I know a few of us have been. And this map is from a feasibility study we did for Nottingham City Council, looking at possible charging locations and installation locations for wireless charging for taxis. So you can see that all the red hotspots are where there's a lot of charge or a lot of dwell time. At a wider scale, it's about planning to help local authorities introduce EV infrastructure. Back down to a depot level, it's coming to infrastructure planning and associated power requirements, and how using the right data can help you understand how different charging regimes can impact your business. This slide's brilliant. The three lines to focus on. The black dotted line is the depot power supply. The orange line is the charging of 25 vehicles on standard charging. This fleet wanted 25 vehicles at that depot. They couldn't, because of, to do it over standard charging was going to wreck their power supply. But the blue line, that shows what would happen if they introduced smart charging. So it shows that just by looking at things slightly differently, you can get more vehicles in your operation in a much easier, cost-effective way. Finally, I know I've run over, sorry. This graph I find brilliant. It's about vehicle to grid. This one's looking at the combination of vehicle to grid, solar panels, battery storage on a household energy usage and flows. And really it's about trying to work out where vehicle to grid and that other elements can help and have the biggest impact. Now, sorry for going over for about a minute. I hope you found that interesting. Happy to answer questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. If anybody has questions for Rob, please put them in the Q&A tab or in the chat box, and Matt will collate them and come on later and we can get them answered for you. So thank you, Rob, and thanks for stop sharing. Matt Stevens, if you'd like to take the spotlight, whilst you do that, I will run the first poll of today. Please answer so it clears from your screen, and then you can pay attention to Mr. Stevens. Welcome to the cafe, Matt. Over to you, mate.
Awesome, thank you. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm just answering the poll so I can
you don't count.
Hopefully I know the answer. So hopefully, can everyone see my slides here?
It's just loading, Matt.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, great. Well, it's a beautiful morning here in Canada. Really delighted to be here, so thank you. To make sure I do try and keep from time, I did steal from my daughter's playroom her timer, so this will be my effort to try and make sure I stay on time. And I will stay on time. So first off, so I've been in EV space for about 17 years, working with fleets for 12. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to try and cover the most useful parts of data for EVs. So within that, I had an honor for Paul. Paul, there is the first LCV, electric LCV I ever installed in. It's a 2011 Ford Transit Connect Electric. And if you look really, really closely, you can see I almost have a hairline back at that point. So it was a long, long time ago. First off, some data goodies, generic data goodies you might find helpful. First up, we've got battery degradation. And so one of the things that we hear all the time is, but what if I have to replace my battery? It's really expensive. And so what we did is we took a little over 6,000 vehicles that are on our platform that we're getting rich data from for the EVs. And we said, okay, well, what's going on with those batteries? Are they degrading? Are they not? Sometimes data really tells you a story that you really like. Sometimes it doesn't. But the punchline was really clear. Battery degradation in electric vehicles in the real world is not something to be concerned about at any of the degradation rates we're seeing right now. There is a difference from makes and models. And if you click on the link when you get the slide deck, you can go in, you can pick the make and model you're interested in. You can see the degradation curve we're looking at. You can see here Renault Kangoo. Obviously, great to have Renault hosting this. The data is real. It is not fudged. You can see that 5 years in, 2014 Renault Kangoos, we're seeing they still have about 96% battery health. So anyway, you can dive in. My main takeaway when we were diving into what causes degradation or what accelerates degradation, first off, batteries age like humans do based on calendar. The amount you drive the vehicle, the distance traveled, is a very, very weak correlation on degradation. So message is drive your EVs a lot. That won't degrade the battery. They age calendar-wise just like you and I do. Fast charging does have a material impact. We're diving more into that to try and figure out, is that the same across all makes and models? Is that the same across all climates? But anyway, there it is. The vast majority of batteries will outlast the usable life of the vehicle. Of the 6,000 EVs, our system only detected 2 battery replacements. Fleet electrification trends. Apologies, I will go through this all pretty quickly. Again, you'll get the slides after so you can jump into what you want. 6 top reasons why we're seeing fleets really start to pick up EVs. Number 1, battery price dropping. The automakers, when they get battery savings, can either invest some or all of that into increasing the range of the vehicle or reducing the purchase price. Up until now, we've generally seen the significant reductions in battery price go into adding range. So the 100-mile vehicle became the 150, became the 200-mile. Now that we're sort of around the 250, we're starting to see the investments instead in going into bringing down the purchase price, which is obviously having a pretty notable impact on total cost. So anyway, it's all there. One I will jump into is, the increased public charging capacity. Just to stoke the fire a little bit in advance of the Q&A, I only see fleets using public infrastructure in very, very specific cases. I think from the work I do with fleets, most people dramatically overestimate the amount that fleets will use public charging. But public charging used incorrectly for a fleet kills the economic case. So that's my little bit of fire I'm trying to stoke in for the Q&A. Sneak peek. All right. Okay, so we are just about to launch this. I saw the final copy for it yesterday. Really excited to get this go live and let anyone access it they want. We took about 5 million EV trips off our platform, and we built real-world range versus temperature. And so this is our, you can tell our strength is not in pretty graphics, but basically it's a tool that you'll be able to go to. You can pick the make, model, and battery size that you're looking at. That the y-axis is a slider. You can pick the temperature you want, and then the x is, you can see the Renault Zoe 41 kilowatt hour 2019. The average real world range we're seeing off of that is 189 miles. The 90th percentile, so the sort of not the best, but sort of the high end is 247 at, really nice temperature, so 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 Celsius. And then the lowest is 126. And basically you can slide that temperature and it'll show you what is the real world range, the average, the 10th, and the 90th. If you want to know as soon as that goes live, just send me an email. I'll flip you as soon as it's live. I'll send you the link. So those are general data goodies. I'm half through my time, which is perfect. I'm exactly where I should be. But what about your fleet? So in the 10 years that I've been working with fleets and trying to help them go electric, there's one big takeaway I've had, and it's successful EV adoption, especially at scale, requires good data. Now, for me, good data does equal telematics, and yes, I'm part of a telematics company, so of course I'm going to say this. But I would like to note, I was in EVs way before I was in telematics. And the reason I got into telematics is because working with fleets to help them adopt and roll out EVs was extremely painful. And I was extremely frustrated that the data we needed wasn't available. And so that's what got me into telematics. So again, I will disclose I am biased, but I'm in telematics because I believe this to be true. So when you think about a fleet going electric, you know, I love watching last week's EV Café, and obviously seeing Sam on there. So, you know, you've got new to electric cargo on the right-hand side. They're 100% electric. You know, they're seasoned professionals at operating an electric fleet successfully. And then you've got most fleets that are closer to the left-hand side, they're just on the start of their EV journey. And when we think about the products or what they need from data, we generally lump it into these three buckets: the go electric, where should I put EVs in my fleet? The second, which is operate EVs, I have them in my fleet, how do I use them effectively? And third is scale electric. So Rob showed smart charging. This is where you need some of the more sophisticated. We generally find you don't need smart charging until you're sort of along your way in your journey to go electric. You do hit that faster in Europe than you do in North America, just because of how the distribution infrastructure is sized. But these are the three buckets. I'm not going to talk at all about the third. I don't have time. My timer's saying I have 4 minutes left, 3.5 minutes left. So I'm only going to talk about the first two. And again, apologies, I am going fast, but I'm trying to cover a lot that we can dive deeper into Q&A if it's of use. First this is the do-it-yourself recipe for Go Electric. I'm not going to read every word on the slide, but basically, please do not put EVs in the shared pool unless your entire chair pool is going to go electric. I know why it's appealing. I get the attractiveness of it. There is only one fleet in the world that I know that has succeeded at doing that, and I know a ton that have failed. Focus on replacing vehicles where it's an assigned driver or an assigned route. You're way more successful if you do it that way. Happy to get into why. Once you know you're looking at assigned routes, there's really just two things you need to look at. First off, look at how the current petrol or diesel vehicle is used every single day. Find the maximum daily distance, and then look at the EVs and say, would the EV do that job? Would that vehicle be able to leave depot and get back to depot without charging at any point during the day? That's number one. And number two is look at the total cost, and this is really based on distance traveled, right? Every single electric mile traveled saves you money. So make sure you drive enough, but then you get into range. And so at a really simple level, where you should go electric in your fleet is a Goldilocks problem. It is from the Goldilocks story, right? So you need to drive the EV enough to have a good total cost, but not so much that you hit daily range issues. And you're just trying to find that sweet spot, that not too warm, not too cold spots in your fleet. Within GEOTAB, we have a turnkey system for this. I really want to make sure I'm not going into the lane of being salesy. So if you want to do it yourself, literally just follow the steps on the previous slide. This is just our automated version of it. If you have GEOTAB devices in your existing fleet, we suck in all the data from your diesel and petrol, and we say, okay, of your 300 vehicles, here's the 84 spots that are ideal to go electric. But again, we are literally just following the steps that you saw on the previous slide. We recommend within GEOTAB you have at least 3 weeks of data off of your petrol and diesel vehicle to make a reasonable assessment. If you have a year's worth of data, then we'll delightfully do it. You have EVs in your fleet. The number one issue fleets hit is making sure EVs plug in. I know it sounds crazy. You're like, why is this going to be my biggest problem? I promise you, making sure the EVs plug in will be the number one thing you have to focus on. And for plug-in hybrids, especially when there's a tax policy that incentivizes getting plug-in hybrids, super important that you make sure the drivers plug in. There's a lot of them, especially if it's a benefit in kind benefit for plug-in hybrids, they want to get the plug-in hybrid to get the credit, but then they'll just drive on petrol. And so, and there's a misalignment of priorities, because as a fleet, you want them to run on electric because of the cost savings, the emission savings, the local air quality, but they'll probably just run on petrol. Happens all around the world. If you have plug-in hybrids, you need to make sure that they plug in. For BEVs, you need to make sure that they plug in so that they can do tomorrow's route. We do so much work. I'm shocked 12 years in, we do so much work, but I promise you, you need to make sure those vehicles plug in. 2 is track your charging. I'm running a little short on time. Track your real-world energy consumption. Make sure when you track real-world energy consumption, you have a way to easily compare apples to apples across your EVs, your petrol, and your diesel. That will blow people's mind. Fortunately, in Canada, we use the British gallon, not the American gallon, so we have the bigger gallons. So you almost always see EVs well over 100 miles per gallon in real world. So make sure you can do that comparison. And then have real-time status data. Again, try not to be salesy. We have this, we do provide this, but again, if there's multiple ways, both through manual data reporting or through other data sources to achieve what I have on the last slide. So multiple ways to do it. So just as this is about to buzz, to go EV successfully, you really need good data. For me, that means telematics, but you just need really good data. We think about it in these three phases: the go electric, operate electric, scale electric. But you can think about it how you wish. I did sneak in one little bonus data. If you, on the right there, we've got a report we just released from the group within GEOTAB focusing on making sure utilities are ready for widespread electrification. And really the punchline is these long-range BEVs look so different than every other BEV we've seen to date. So the things like the Model 3s, people drive them differently, they charge them differently. They're very important to understand. Again, it's a free report. Click there for more data, and it's about to buzz. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt. Is your timer a bit slow? Because I've got you over as a minute over, but that's fine. I think I can speak on behalf of everybody on here. That was really good content for both of you, actually. Great slides, very interesting. In particular, for me, the range figures for Zoe were great. I'd love to see what that looks like with the 52 kilowatt hour battery now. So as we go to the panel for some questions for both you and Matt and Rob. So I'm going to end the polling for fake news. And Matt, if you can just tell us which one put me out of my misery, because you shared them with me last night. And I'm thinking about them all night, not really. But I was in agreement with everyone else about the Canadian military asking you to, or involving you in building a stealth electric snowmobile. And the 40% think that. So what is it? What is the fake news?
So we did build a stealth snowmobile for the Canadian military. Electric vehicles are both silent. They also don't have a heat signature. And so most vehicle weapons target heat. So you're less likely to get blown up if you're driving an electric snowmobile. So that one's real. Daytime, nighttime is from Walk on the Wild Side from BBC. It is something my wife and I just absolutely love and think's hilarious. And so I have not driven 1,000 miles in a full electric lorry. We have a ton of data off of full electric lorries. It's one of the things that I was most wrong on. I did not think full electric lorries were going to be a thing for most of my life. I'm wrong. We have a ton of data, but I have never driven one because I don't have the proper license.
There you go.
Thank you, Matt. Questions from the panel, and if we can get Matthew on the call as well, live from the mailroom. I know there was a few questions that popped up in the Q&A that we should probably look to cover. Just having a quick look. Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just finishing off copying down the last question. I'll be back on with you in a minute.
Perfect. So I can see on there, Matt, from Leo Pickford, as per Matt, I'd love to know why mixed fleets are bad. Is this because everyone will want to drive the EV all the time, and so the ICE vehicles don't get driven?
I wish that was the case. It's the exact inverse. People say, look, I understand petrol, I understand diesel, I will take the vehicle that I understand and I will go, and then the EVs don't get used. And then they look at the utilization data a year later and say EVs don't work. And that's not why. They don't work because people just pick the petrol and diesel. And so in a shared pool where people are going to go in and they can pick any vehicle they want, if those are all electric, you'll succeed. If you do have both EVs and petrol or in diesel, you need an EV first policy. You need to be like, you are taking the EV unless you can communicate to me why you can't take the EV. And that's the way around it. But again, I only know one fleet in the world that's successfully done that.
Sarah.
Just to bolster your point, Matt, we had the exact opposite of that when we put our EV vans in North Somerset Council, but perhaps that's local authority versus private sector, I don't know. But we ran it alongside an education programme, so anybody who wanted to understand the vehicle could have a sort of one-to-one opportunity to do that. And it really sparked everyone's interest, pun intended, and eventually we were seeing that we were able to sell off more of the old ones, and it wasn't anything to do with me, it was Carl Nicholson, absolute genius at North Somerset Council. But he had this vision, and I helped with the education programme to make sure people loved the EVs, and it turned out that you couldn't get one, and then we ended up waiting to order some. So it can work, but provided you say you prioritise the EV, you hold people's hands and you make sure they feel good about it, and you explain the reason why. And this was about saving money for the council.
That's awesome.
I've got a question, and I'm not sure whether it's Rob or Matt, possibly both. Telematics is an area which I'm absolutely fascinated in and love to pieces because I like data. However, drivers on corporate fleets sometimes have a bit of a worry that there's this spy in the cab, that suddenly their behavior is being monitored. You guys have looked at many fleets. How do you get over that reluctance to share your driving data?
Rob, do you want to jump on first?
Yeah, I will. So a bit like GEOTAB and others, Cenex have developed our own tracking device. But all it does is it just tracks speed and time and location. Doesn't do any driver reporting on over speeding, harsh braking, etc. Although, to be honest, we can infer it, but we don't report on it. I think a lot of it is, it's as Sarah said, it's a little bit around driver education. It's informing them of why we're doing it, helping them as individuals understand it's not about spying on them.
Yeah.
It's helping the business understand the vehicle operations in better detail to help the business make the decision about which way to go. Are they going to switch towards electric or keep with what they've got?
That's helpful. And similar in Canada, Matt?
Yeah, similar all around the world. There is geographical differences. So Canada, US, it's not usually as much of a concern. Germany, very high level concern about driver tracking. So there is regional differences. China, not a concern, although we don't deploy devices in China for other, like for US government reasons. But anyway, yeah, so the countries do matter. There is social norms. Having said that, of the 2 million vehicles we have, that have GEOTAB devices in them, there is a small subset. You can do driver training, speeding, safety, and there's some that focus on that. The vast majority of the 2 million don't focus on that. It's just not the priority. Even in a few cases where we have police fleets, there's certain things that are inherently turned off. We deliberately turn off some driver tracking issues. So we do that rarely because usually it's just not used, and it's more. To Sarah's point about the EV shared pool, it's about education and saying, look, this is what we're trying to do, which is exactly what Rob was saying.
Excellent. It's exactly that across the whole EV world. It's all about education.
Thank you. Matt, live from the mailroom. Sorry, Paul. Just before we get to the mailroom.
I just want to fire a quick question. Obviously, I'm a little bit familiar with what GEOTAB do and what Rob does with Cenex, and I'm really interested because one of the things that I think is really helpful is around integrating where charging can occur. So home charging, depot, workplace charging, or in the field. The what we're going to hear about from Melanie shortly. And I'd love to understand whether there's any desire or interest in integrating those three key bits of data that currently I don't believe are integrated into the systems that we're looking at. Whether you can sort of say, absolutely, if you have home charging and workplace charging, you have enough charge to take care of it. Also, if you overlay, say, the data from Zap-Map into the thing, you've got key charging points around the country, around your journey, using your heat map analogy, Rob, to bring to life and give that confidence. We're talking about education, aren't we? So we're just educating people that actually they're well within their limits.
Thanks, Paul. Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so the suitability assessment, the EV where we take the data off petrol, diesel, make the recommendation, it's very simple about where you're going to charge. We assume wherever that vehicle sleeps at night is the only place you can charge. We are opening up through partners. They're taking the data because we know your workplace dwell time, we know your home, we know that kind of data you're talking about, Paul. And so other folks are building on top of that saying, okay, well, you wouldn't make it only charging at night, but if you could have workplace charging, because if that sleeps at your house at night, then you'd be fine. Or maybe you don't have a charging infrastructure at home, it's curbside, you don't want to rely on it, and so we'll only do workplace. And so there's people building on top of that suitability assessment to do exactly what you're saying. And I'd love for someone to also include, hey, here's Zap-Map, here's where you normally dwell. It's naturally, like the petrol vehicle sits 50 meters from where there's a number of charge points based on Zap-Map. So I think there's ways to extend it. At least in the suitability assessment, it's something we're only now working on through partners.
Maybe you, Melanie, can have a chat afterwards.
Love it.
Hey, thanks all. Just before we go to Matt live in the mailroom for 5 minutes, as you can see, I've shared the poll results from what is your fleet size. So as we can see, 41% of the audience has 100 plus vehicles in their fleet. I'll be following up in the next 5 minutes with some more polls. It's all about data, so why not? Just to find out where are those 100 vehicles from, 100 plus vehicles from, whether you're a fleet operator, an OEM, leasing, that kind of thing. And also, where are you in the EV journey? So keep an eye on the polls as we go for these questions. Over to you, Matt.
Right, guys, quite a few questions over in the mailroom for you. I don't think we'll get through them all, so when we finish this, if you want to go into the chat, the Q&A box and answer any of the remaining questions, that'd be great.
That's okay. We'll have another chance to come back on live.
All right, no problem. So first question we had from Gustav Bowden. I heard some time back that data will replace oil as a commodity. What are your thoughts on this? Anyone want to take that?
Data as a commodity?
Yeah, it's going to replace oil as a commodity.
I think it's the way that historically businesses have wanted to go. Businesses have wanted to get as much data as they can so that they can tailor their products to the end user. The issue is not the data. The issue is the insights that data gives you. And that is what is of value. It's not the data in itself. And we learned this from loyalty cards going way back from supermarkets. More and more data doesn't lead necessarily to more and more satisfied customers. What it does lead to, if you use insights, is an understanding of who that human being is that's interacting with your products so that you can tailor solutions specifically for them.
Cool. Matt?
Yeah, so I think, obviously, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think data was valuable. I think one thing when you think about data versus oil to keep in mind is that oil is finite and consumable, meaning if you have a gallon of oil, only one person can use it, and once it's used, it's gone. That concept doesn't follow with data. You can copy it. You can take a bit of data that's really useful for leasing to give better, insurance, to give better insurance rates. You have a bit of data that's really useful for the utility. And so that's where I think it's extremely valuable. I think when we think about oil versus data, we've got some beautiful flexibility in data that we don't destroy it when we use it, and we can parcel it off. We can protect privacy and use it in multiple, there can be a whole lot of value streams.
Awesome. Rob, a question for yourself. How are you finding gaining access to data from other vendors? This is regarding experience with local government. Who owns the data, the council or the vendor? And is there anything you could suggest that might open up data sharing and interoperability?
Yes, we do have difficulty. It can be tricky, especially trying to get data, as I say, from any organization. As soon as it starts to get anywhere near personal information, you start to bump up against GDPR, which has caused us all sorts of issues with projects that we've been running. But there's ways you can get around that. There's, anonymizing the data can help. But a lot of the stuff that we do, the information that we use is always anonymized. It's only ever based on the vehicle reg number, not an individual. There's ways that you can get around it, and I think most telematics and other data providers are happy to share that information as long as they're aware of how it's going to get used and whether you as an organization have the relevant data protection and GDPR policies.
Yeah, go on, Sarah.
To add to Rob's point, I think it often falls down right at the start, right at the procurement, right about the SLAs, right at the point in which you choose your provider. You need to have some pretty solid terms to make sure you're happy with the way that the data is going to be shared and exploited and harvested. And so often it's such a panic that you kind of go, I really want that product, I'll just take whatever terms they've got. But I would really recommend moving forward that fleets do really carefully consider what data they have, what data someone else has.
Yes, John.
It's also worth saying that oil, disgusting stuff that it is, does get better with age. Data, however, doesn't. And so having a constant stream of data, which is updated and giving a relevant recent picture, is key. And we've seen that through COVID-19. where data being collected and taking time to get to market is almost of little value. We need to have good, consistent data streams and quick analysis to give us those insights. Otherwise, we're fighting a losing battle.
Cool. There was another very similar question in the chat, in the Q&A box around this to Matt, but the end on it was slightly different. Are you aware of any EV chargers that can gain useful information from EVs? Is this an area that could be developed, Matt?
Yeah, so fast chargers already have some data communication between the vehicle and the station, but going forward, there's a standard called ISO 15118, people call it 15118. It is a new way in which really useful data would be exchanged between vehicle and charge point. But it's mainly a future option, but it will dramatically increase the richness of data that goes across the coupler.
Brilliant. Right, next question. You were telling us before, Matt, about your speed and temperature system. There's a question come up from that was, does your system recognise the speed differences between sort of like 25 mile an hour constant on a motorway, 25 mile an hour on mixed roads, and 25 mile an hour in stop-start situations? Or is it just always 25 mile per hour irrespective of the road?
Well, so those different scenarios, when you look at real world fuel efficient or energy efficiency of an EV, they're pretty darn close for an EV. They're not pretty darn close for petrol or diesel. And so there's certain things that, because of how an EV can operate, it's less. Speed matters, but stop and go doesn't matter as much. So I'm ducking and weaving because it depends on which part of the system you're actually using, what it includes. But there's some beautiful benefits of EVs, whether like if you're in a hilly environment or flat, the fuel efficiency is usually energy efficiency is about the same because the EV can recapture most on the down. Not necessarily true for petrol and diesel. And so there's certain things that matter a lot in petrol and diesel that actually don't matter in EVs.
Cool. So in relation to battery degradation and fast charge, Tesla have obviously fast charge. And just wondered what the battery degradation Tesla have experienced in comparison to the Kangoo example you gave us after 4 years was. As in order for EVs to grow, especially LCVs and HGV fields, fast charging is going to be the key. That's from Graham Regas.
Yeah, so I think first thing I would say is that even with fast charging, the conclusion's still the same, that most batteries will outlast the usable life of the vehicle. So I just want to be clear, I'm not a skies falling messenger here. It's just fast charging we do see vehicles that are fast charging have battery degradation that's faster than those that don't. Again, both of those are pretty flat, but there's a perceptible difference. And that includes a bunch of Tesla data in there too. And I think maybe even, I don't know if in the curve I actually showed the Renault versus the Tesla. But anyway, in the tool, you can pick whatever vehicles you want, including Teslas, and see the curves. So anyway, fast charging is good. It's needed. I fast charge, but it's, we are seeing an increase in degradation if you fast charge more.
Brilliant. And a question for the panel here. What does the panel think about the issue of too much data for fleet managers, non-fleet managers to handle in the future, i.e. consolidation, ownership of data, manufacturer telematics, fleet management companies, all collating the same or different data? So what do we think about that? Do we think people are going to have too much data to handle in the future?
Awesome question,
Sarah.
but let's save it because we're desperate to hear from Melanie.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
We're running over time a bit, but let's have that one again, Matt. Can we move that one to the next Melanie?
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Thanks, Matthew, so and especially for those that are asking so many good questions. As Sarah said, we will open the mailroom again, but for now, it's time to introduce Melanie Shufflebotham. And if it wasn't for her and a good team, there's a good chance that I wouldn't have covered as many as 100,000 miles in a battery electric vehicle. For me, they make the transition to EV very easy, offering a platform to allow me, at least, to drive point A to B in the confines of the coast. So welcome to the Café, Melanie. Would you like to go ahead and share your screen?
Yep, will do. Hello, everyone. Right, screen.
Whilst you do that, Melanie, there are a lot of questions. So panelists, if you get a chance and you want to answer some of them via the chat box, then do go ahead.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Oh yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. Hello everyone. Really nice to be here. I'm Melanie Shufflebotham. I'm the co-founder of Zap-Map. Thanks very much for inviting me onto the EV Café. That has saved me from another day of product development and spreadsheets. It's great to be able to talk about EVs, which is a big passion of mine, obviously. So today, what I wanted to talk about, a little quick overview of Zap-Map and what data we have within Zap-Map, and then how we use that for market tracking, utilization tracking, and EV driver behavior. So first up, in a way, it's funny to be talking on a data cafe, because Zap-Map is all about the EV drivers, and it was born out of EV drivers, and it's the data fell out of that, if you like. So back in 2012, when the Nissan Leaf came out, we realized that electric cars were going to be the technology of the future, and we knew that people were going to need to find charging points around the UK. So we got a spreadsheet, aggregated the points, uploaded them to a very basic map on our website, which we were running at the time, nextgreencar.com. And I think there were 700 points at that point, and now there's 30,000. So we went from there, and now we have a fully operating system with lots of API updates from different suppliers. But really, all it's about the EV market, EV drivers' needs, which is one, how can I locate a suitable charge point? So that's the 101 of Zap-Map. Where are the charge points? What connector types they are? How much they cost? How do I pay for them? Etc. Etc. Secondly, it's about planning longer journeys. So Matt, it was really interesting to see that information about range. That's exactly the type of thing that drivers have to factor into their journeys. So we've got a smart route planner which helps track their journeys, and then we've got an amazing Zap-Map community who share updates, add photos on all the charge points. And Zap-Map's available on iOS, Android, and the desktop, and maybe some people don't know version of Zap-Map, which you can try out. So as a result of that, of creating Zap-Map, we've created. What's that?
I was just asking for Matt to go on silent. He's got a lot of background noise.
Can you hear?
We can hear you. That's great.
Yeah, okay. As a result, I can't see my slide because I got the pictures all over it, but as a result of creating Zap-Map, we have obviously got a database of all the charge points. We believe 97% of charge points, and of those, we have 70% of those, we have dynamic updates from the network. So that means that we've connected with 70% of the networks, and we get data updated to show whether they're available, charging, or out of service, updated every 5 minutes. Some other stats on the slide. The one we're really proud of, which we announced last week, was we've now got to 100,000 registered users on Zap-Map, and that's from a base of around 120,000 pure EV drivers in the UK. So we're really happy with that, and we get loads of interaction from our users, who also tell us what we need to add in terms of new features. So we have the data we use to do market tracking, utilization analysis, and driver behavior. So I just wanted to share a few things about that with you today. So first of all, just the overall profile of the UK charging infrastructure headlines. There's 18,000 chargers on the network at 11,000 locations, which, as a side note, is more than there are petrol stations, of which I think there's only around 9,000 of those. So we are overtaking that. 18% of those are rapid, and it's been growing at 50% 2019 over 2018. So that's sort of the headline stats, but in a way it's sort of, so what? There's a whole lot of dots on the map. What is this? Why is this important? And I think the really important thing is that it's incredibly patchy across the UK. So there's some cities which are brilliantly served with charge points, like Milton Keynes or Nottingham, Dundee, Oxford, all doing really good work installing different types of charge points. But there's some areas, I could name Norfolk or Wales, which really don't have enough charge points to really drive the EV uptake. So we provide there's lots of information there, being able to compare charging point deployment by different local authorities, regionally, by location types, and all sorts of other factors like that. A couple of trends which I think are really important, which we've been seeing in the data, is one is the increase in speed to ultra rapid chargers. So that is chargers which are over 100 kilowatts. So you can see on the graph top left, you can see that in 2015 we reached 10,000 connectors, so around 4,000 charge points, and now we're at 30,000 connectors, or around 18,000 charge points. And you can see the yellow, blue and pink denote the speed, and you can see from 2017, 2016 there's a small sliver which is the ultra rapids, which are effectively the Tesla superchargers. But then from 2019 and going into 2020, that green spot has gone up a lot, and that is the installation of the larger 100 kilowatt, 150 kilowatt, and going up to 350 kilowatt chargers, which is great, especially as the EV models which can charge at that rate are now coming out as well. So that's an increase from 2% to 8% of all connectors are now ultra rapid, and I would expect that to continue in the next over the next years. Secondly, more on-street solutions. So I think a lot of us have heard in the press, all those people who don't have off-street parking, around 60 to 70% of people have off-street parking, and so the rest of them, it's more challenging for them to have an EV, because as we know, 80% of charges take place at the home. So I think the market is responding to that, and you can see on this market share chart showing market share by different networks that Ubertricity, who have charge points in lamppost, have now got 2,000 chargers, mainly in London, and 11% of all chargers are now these lamppost chargers. And we're seeing this type of solution and other solutions rolling out across the UK at the moment. And the third trend is this shift towards charging hubs. When we did our last survey of the Zap-Map user base, we asked them, what are the most important things for a public charge point for you, in terms of either reliability, speed, price, or facilities? And number one by a long margin was reliability. And I think that there's still a reasonably long way to go. There is still some way to go to get the public charging network really reliable. And actually amenities came last. So that was quite interesting. However, I think that as the market develops, increasingly it's going to be really important to have facilities, Wi-Fi, toilets, cafes, coffee, things to do while you are charging. And there are a number of charging hubs which are either already launched or being in the process of being launched. The picture on the left is the Shell Recharge concept, in which they're going to convert a service station in Fulham to a full charging hub with different facilities for people to take part in while they're charging. And the middle one is GridServe charging hub, which I know a lot of people are excited about. So I think the point there is that although here and now reliability is what people are worried about, we have to think to the future and think about different models and different models of charging, and the data can help us shift through to that. So the next slide is about utilisation. As I said, we have utilisation on 70% of all charging activities. So that means that we're constantly tracking when people are charging, and we can see different charging profiles, which is really useful for various different organisations to understand where they're charging hotspots, where there's demand, which chargers are used, which chargers are well used and which are not, on a sort of aggregated level. So this is a high level UK-wide view of utilisation by different power rating. So you can see that it differs dramatically by power rating, as you would expect. So the slow chargers are used, can't actually see the number, but I think it's around 0.8 times per day. So on average, slow charger is used slightly less than once per day. But when you get to the rapid chargers, that gets up to over 2.2 charges per device per day. If you talk to people who are running business models for charge point utilization, that is certainly not enough for a charge point to be profitable. I think it needs to be at 6 to 8 at least. But when you look around the country, there are hotspots, for example, in London, where rapid chargers in particular get over that figure. And then the other graph shows the profile of start time. And you can see there that this shows when the charges start on the public network during the day. So you can see the yellow bars, typically people plug in into a slow point at the beginning of the day, whereas the rapids are more skewed towards the end of the day, and in fact even in the middle of the night, which I think is mainly taxi drivers charging. Now, finally, to finish, we have during the coronavirus, we've been looking at the impact on charging as the impact of coronavirus on the EV charging, and as you can imagine, there's been a big impact. So this graph shows the utilisation of the UK's public charge point over from the 1st of March to yesterday, and it's normalised to the 1st of March, so 1st of March was 0, and you can see when the lockdown was announced on the 23rd, there was a dramatic fall in charging, and then as time's gone on and people have started charging a little bit more, it's gone up, and then when last week's announcement, it certainly started to pick up again. So I think that's broadly, and when I've looked at figures for the overall car market, it's broadly in line with that. We also did a survey to Zap-Map users with the REA for OLEV to try and understand how people were using their EVs in the lockdown or in the crisis, and 83% of the survey users were using EVs for essential travel. So some of that was going shopping, but they were also using it to deliver medicine, to go to work, and to do lots of other sort of medical related trips, and 24% are key workers. So I guess the message there is that EVs are being used for standard everyday tasks. We're not surprised about that, but some people are. So really, just to conclude, data from EV charging and point network and the EV drivers really is fantastically useful for people to make decisions on future products and services, from market tracking, utilisation, and also EV driver behaviour. And I think it's sort of a great output from our main focus, which is to help EV drivers, but we get this data which we're using to help companies get EV data ready.
Thank you very much, Melanie. If I can ask you just to stop sharing your screen. I'm going to ask Matthew to come back on, just because of the amount of questions that we do have in the Q&A tab. We will have approximately 12 minutes, according to my agenda, until we have a news round from Sarah. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm just going to share some results from the polls that we've been running as well, so you can have a look at those and see where we are, where the audience are in their EV journey. Over to you, Matt.
Cool. Right, loads of questions. So we'll start off firstly with the one we finished off at last time. So do we think fleet managers will have too much data to handle in the future? That's simplifying it down. Anyone want to attack that first? Anyone?
You can nominate Matt if you have to. Sarah and Matt have put their hands up.
I think it just depends on the appetite. I mean, some people really want to have that data and they've got grand plans for it, and others really genuinely don't know what they're getting into. I've seen some charging products coming forward that just say, well, look, you don't need to be paying for telematics. You really can do this yourself. As like Matt was saying, forget the hard sell, just give people the option. Do you want to manage it? This is what you'll need to do. If you don't want to manage it, then don't, but you're going to need to pay to make sure that data is protected, is secured, it's being reported on how you want it. So it's one of those things you've just got to factor in when you make your decisions.
Yeah, and I just say, like, data is the interim step, right? Like, really what you want is you want answers and better actions, and where you get your data is there multiple ways, but I think the goal isn't more data, the goal is better decisions, and you need data for that.
Need data to make decisions. Johnny?
Yeah, so Julian wants to answer that question, so I'm just going to take him off mute, and he can answer that question. So I've unmuted him. Julian, welcome to the EV Cafe.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to be unmuted. Data is literally my wheelhouse. I'm a big fan. So on my birthday, I'm choosing to participate in this. So thank you for obviously making
Happy birthday!
Can I just say, just to add to that, because Melanie, big fan of Zap-Map. You guys have really changed the game for EV drivers out there and for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And to answer the question regarding fleet, 100%. When doing my masters, we did a lot of research and data, and Johnny will tell you I'm a big fan of data for what we're doing as well at Voltric. But one thing we consistently come across is, especially on projects that I was working on, is people would ask, the consultants that I was working with, we need data to understand what people are doing. And we do this massive research, gather big data, and then it sits in a folder for years. And then they go, well, that project was a bit of a waste of time. And there's a pattern around that, because managing data it can be quite a hassle. and some people are just not willing to go through the process. So I think over time, as the network becomes even more connected, the network becomes even more integrated, there'll be a lot more data. And what you'll find is that key information will slip through the net. I have a saying that I love the way data tells a story, and data can tell more than one story, but people tend to miss that. So anyway, I'll let you guys carry on. But yeah, thanks for meeting me, John. I wasn't expecting this. Anyway, carry on.
As always, thanks for your valuable input.
Have a great birthday. Bye.
Happy birthday, Gillian.
Mr. Kirby.
I think John, Paul, sorry.
Okay, I'll be quick and then I'll let John throw in. So I hate data. I love insight. So to Julian's point, we need some storytellers. We need some people that can take all this mush, all the detail, and turn it into something I can consume, that I can make decisions on, that I can take action on in my fleet. That's what I want, and I love the Zap-Map model. It tells me if something's working or not. You know, I can take action on what I see, and that's what's really valuable for me. If I look at a spreadsheet and I've got to interpret it, I melt. Okay, you know. But if somebody gives me an answer, gives me a story, and tells me what I can do, then happy days. So please, storytellers, insights. That's what I want.
Nice.
Mr. Curtis.
2 points. Melanie, the world loves you.
So
look
much.
Look at that chat box, and seriously, it is on fire. What people are asking is, would it be possible to use your slides, to have a copy of the slides? And I think we have the EV Cafe on LinkedIn, and I think a LinkedIn group where we're maybe able to access slides and files would be really useful as we develop, because your data is outstanding. Taking that one step further, do you use the data that you have to help OLEV make decisions about where charge points go? Because with 500 million to spend on a rapid charge point network, what you know about our infrastructure is vitally important to start plugging gaps and making the best use of that investment. Do you get involved?
Yeah, I mean, we've got good contacts with and they use our data. Well, they have access to our data.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think what we found, we've got there's lots and lots of different people thinking about where to put charge points in and are building different stories, and it's quite interesting. There's all these experts out there, and I think it feels like there should be some more joined up thinking, especially in the areas which are clearly not commercially viable in the short term. And I'm practically a regular on BBC Wales, telling them there's not enough charge points in sort of that central Wales belt. And everyone can see it, but it seems to be hard to marshal the resources to get that sort of key infrastructure built along the specific roadways.
Keep at it.
Yep.
Melanie, I think as everyone's said, there's been a lot of love and a lot of questions for you in the chat box, so we'll try and smash through some of these. Okay. What are the 28% of other charges by market share that were on your presentation, please?
Other charges. So which is that by location type or?
It was on it just said, what were the 28% of other charges by market share on presentation you just showed us?
Yeah. Well, you can see that there's loads and loads of different networks all springing up, and there's new ones coming practically weekly. So some of those would have only maybe, 10 or 20 charge points, so they don't merit their own little slice. So they all go into other. I mean, I can't off the top of my head say exactly who they are, but there's things like London Borough of Islington have got a little network, and there's a nice little network called Gwent Energy, which is in mid Wales, which has got maybe 20 or 30 points. So there's lots of different little networks in there.
Real. What is the latency when using Zap-Map from on-off charge? How quickly is it updated?
It's updated every 5 minutes from the network. So we poll the data every 5 minutes. And I guess there's a possibility that you imagine we poll it every 5 minutes, and if someone starts charging 1 minute after we poll, then it could take a little bit longer to come through, but basically 5 minutes.
Will you be partnering with companies like GEOTAB and overlaying your data into their platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think we get lots of people coming to us to want to use our data, and I think it's just about getting the right sort of model. But yes, great. We want to work with people to push EV adoption and get the data out there.
Are you able to see charge power utilization per charger? What other information would you like to collect, perhaps supplied by OEMs?
Yeah, I mean, we get the data we get from the networks is effectively start, stop, and status. So if it's out of charge, so we don't know how much power is discharged. We can obviously calculate that or estimate that, but if the 50 kilowatt rapid charger is only pulling 22 kilowatts for some reason, we don't know that. Cool.
A couple of questions around your thoughts on charging hubs, Melanie. Sorry, it is a lot for you here. You've obviously sparked the debate. So do you have any data projections that take into account the bigger ranges for average cars now? With 200-mile range cars, the need for en route charging stops becomes less common, but charging hubs will become more important for those who can't charge at home. Have you any data projections around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one bit of analysis we did is on our route planner, where we can look at, so it's all anonymized, so don't worry about GDPR stuff, but we've looked at a sort of high level how the journey range or journey length increases with range, particularly on the Nissan Leaf, because we've got a really nice lot of Nissan Leafs on our platform going from the sort of 80 miles range, 100 miles range, 100, all the way up. And you can see very clearly, probably unsurprisingly, that the correlation of journey length and number of stops needed is absolute direct. So you the average journey length, I think, for a 150-mile Leaf is something like 230 miles, and they stop once. That type of idea. So yes, I think obviously as we get more and more range on cars, there will be. I think that the charging hub model will become more important. But of course, there's the flip side of that is if you have a huge battery size, it might take you more than 12 hours to charge up on your 3 or 7 kilowatt at home. So I don't think there's any. I think rapid public charging will still be needed.
Cool. Really, right back for everyone, really. Sorry to throw all them at you, Melanie, but as I say, there was quite a few in there for you. There's still some more, but I'm going to give you a bit of a break.
Paul had his hand up, Matt. Sorry, Paul had his hand up.
Sorry, I can't see Paul. He's behind his questions.
It was another. Oh, I see. That's how you hide my face. Right. It was another question for Melanie. Actually, I've looked at this this kind of destination charging in terms of like a super hub type thing. Yeah. And I look at it and I really wonder whether people will go deliberately to spend an hour out of whatever 45 minutes to do that. And I mean, do you have feedback from your sort of registered base that suggests that people would like that, or are people just being optimistic and think that the business model will work?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, we don't have any specific feedback saying yes, we are desperate for charging hubs. I mean, I just think that the places where you go and spend an hour, why wouldn't you be charging while you're doing that? Yeah, and so why wouldn't you, at the moment people do that on a sort of top up sort of grazing model, so they'll go to a shopping center and they'll add 10 kilowatts or something, but why wouldn't you have a nice rapid charger there? Go to the shopping center, you go to your hub and you rapid charge specifically, and or that it's got some facilities there. I mean, I think there's a whole working week that I think more and more people won't be traveling necessarily all the way for meetings, but people might be going halfway, stopping at a sort of charging hub and having a remote meeting there. Or I think there's new models that will emerge, but no, we don't have any specific feedback, particularly from our users who are just saying, yes, we want charging hubs. I think personally that it will come.
Matt, we've probably got time for one quick question with a really snappy answer before we go live in the newsroom with Sarah Sloman. So
no problem. We'll go with. Will there be any possibility for telematics tech to recognise a location and trigger the charging without the driver needing to activate via RFID card. Go with to the data guys with that. What do you think? Is that something that's a possibility in the future? What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, so with so you're talking like a Tesla supercharger where you just plug in and everything authenticates and bills, and so I think that's what you're talking about, right, Matt?
Yeah.
So ISO 15118. I feel like I'm a ISO 15118 pump man. I have nothing to do with it. Will enable that. So that will enable all the handoff, all the triggering, so you could have the Tesla-like supercharger experience on any station. Again, that's a future option. There's us and others that are trying to work on something in the interim. But 15118 does contemplate that. It does provide that.
Excellent. Johnny, is that all right for you?
That's perfect. And just a reminder to the panelists and the special guests that the Q&A tab is at the bottom. So feel free to answer them, type answer, just hit that type answer or enter it in the chat box. Whilst we do the news round, and then straight after we can go to the marketplace. So over to you, Sarah, live from the news round. Hey!
Hey!
Weather girl.
Got a clicker.
So here is the EV weather. Welcome and thank you for having me. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Sarah Sloman, your friendly EV Weather Cafe host. Now, let's see what the weather's like in your area. Sweeping across the country, we see this cold front coming in as a result of people parking internal combustion engine cars in EV spaces, something soon to change with the recent £10 million EVSE funding announcement, which includes improved passive-aggressive signage. There is a chance of some rain too, so don't leave home without your umbrella. You will need it if people plan on installing the charge points in places where the drivers can't shelter and do not plan on investing in a canopy, soggy feet all round and low profit margin returns. We're expecting a warm front rising up from central government after the Rapid Charging Fund was announced, a £500 million commitment for EV charging infrastructure. The purpose of this programme will be to ensure that there is rapid charging network ready for meeting the long-term consumer demands for electric vehicle ahead of need. So pack that picnic. It seems the temperature of the EV community is high, around 20 degrees centigrade, which is perfect for a walk or cycle ride. So leave the lithium at home perhaps and get some exercise. Yep. Click. It will mostly be thunder, lightning, and probably misery, I'm afraid, at the houses of those decision makers who think that after CV19 we can go back to the way things were with air quality and congestion. Let's hope they're braced and ready for a storm. Those in the east will see some heightened activity where grid-served forecourt is breaking ground, so no rain for you. And likewise in Oxford, Nottingham, Coventry, Manchester, and all over the UK, things are hotting up nicely, looking to be the biggest rollout of EV charging infrastructure on record here in the UK next year. And down in the West Country, we are planning for the usual influx of tourists, guffawing out fumes and skewing our air quality rankings, but we make the most of it by making sure we hike the price of quaint microbrewery beer and homemade fudge. Well, that's it from me. As always, you can tweet us pictures of your EV news and weather at EV Cafe. Thank you, enjoy your travels, and goodbye. Back to the studio.
Hey! I didn't think you could top last week, Sarah, if I'm honest, but you just have, easily.
Nice.
I knew I was paying too much for my fudge.
I told you.
Sarah, you have the look of Theresa May. There was a moment when you said storm, and I actually turned to stone.
Yeah, think how my kids feel.
Right. So it's that time now. So we're going to go to the commercial break, i.e. marketplace. So for those of you that are taking part in this week, we have had, unfortunately, one dropout due to a home emergency. So we've got 4. So we have got space for another one. So if any of you fancy putting your hands up, the first one, put the hands up, we'll get 60 seconds on air. And the rest that were already previously agreed, if you can put your hands up so I can pick you out. Oh, they're coming in now. That's great. So we're going to start with John Smith. Okay, so you know the score, John. I'm going to take you off mute and sound the klaxon, and you have 60 seconds to give the best sales pitch of your life. Bear with me a second.
Come on.
Oh, better sound up on my loud klaxon.
Can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1.
Right. Hello everyone, good afternoon, hope you're staying safe. Right, CSL are a secure 4G connectivity SIM router specialist to the fire, security, health, EV and telematics markets. We provide a managed service where we manage all the SIMs and connectivity on your behalf so you can focus on your business and what you're good at. Our connectivity is based on multiple roaming SIMs, which allow maximum resiliency and improved SLAs and uptime to the EV charge points and all devices in the network. We provide secure IP addresses, which allows always-on connectivity to devices and remote access as well. So you can remotely connect to EV chargers, for ANPR cameras, for icing, telematics devices as well. Finally, the routers are also used as secure endpoints into your network. You can send bespoke traffic from a charge point to your network on secure end-to-end VPN, and then these routers can also be used to back up your network in case your fixed line goes down. So all in all, we provide a secure, managed connectivity between EV chargers, base stations, networks, cars, and everything. How much have I got left?
You're out.
Perfect.
Well done.
Good effort.
David, you're live on the EV Cafe. Oh, have I done the right person here? No. David,
Yep.
are you there?
David, you're muted.
You're muted, David.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Hi, folks. So, yeah, I'm David Krangle. I work for Transpoco Telematics. We provide big data open platforms for many different projects globally. Transpoco is fundamentally helping to change transportation and the environment by incorporating EV big data from multiple vehicle types, vans, cars, trikes, e-scooters. We're also helping cities, governments to better benchmark and make clear decisions around health and safety, charging infrastructure, urban and last mile activity using the latest artificial intelligence software. My passion is working with organizations so they can better understand how they can use big data to start putting the net into their net zero targets. And there is no time like the present to start doing this that works. Once I know I've done all this, I will be able to sleep easy knowing I have worked towards creating a greener, safer planet for the future. Thanks, guys.
Yay, David.
Good man.
Perfect timing, David. Excellent. Nigel.
Everybody's spoiling Johnny's fun this week and nobody gets that.
I know. Nigel, are you there?
He's on mute. Nigel.
Unmute. Can you hear me okay?
There you go.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Go for it.
Hello, everyone. Phoenix Contact has been involved with the supply of EV e-mobility components over the last 10 years. As an innovator in this sector, we set new standards in state-of-the-art charging infrastructure. We have pioneered technologies for high-powered charging at 350 kilowatts to achieve charging times in minutes instead of hours. A liquid-cooled cable delivering 500 amps at 1,000 volts. I often describe our broad portfolio as the technology behind the charge point. Award-winning AC charge cables, along with our famous CCS cables for fast charge applications. In 2020, we had the new C-line versions of the 1480 amp cables for DC charging. To complete our portfolio, we have AC and DC charge controllers with OCPP connectivity, energy meters, charge management software, and this year we add new AC sockets to complete the mix. I'm Nigel Dorban. Please do get in touch to discuss your requirement. I'm happy to help. And by the way, ask Barack Obama about our HPC cables. Thanks for listening.
That was literally spot on. Nigel. That was. I'm not even going to give you a klaxon. You finished dead on 60 seconds. Oh, you ruined my fun. 2 more to go. So next, welcome to the EV Cafe, Jamie.
Thank you. Hello.
60 seconds starts now.
Wallbox. We don't want to be the biggest, we want to be the best. We are a Spanish electric vehicle charging manufacturer founded 5 years ago by 2 former Tesla employees who were looking to simplify the EV charging process. We now have offices in Europe, the US and China, and our products are sold in over 50 countries. We have 4 different EV chargers to choose from, covering home and business, all connected to the MyWallbox energy management platform. Customer understanding and innovation is fundamental to our approach. We remember that when people buy a plug-in vehicle, they are taking control of their mobility energy for the first time. This is a big and very liberating change. We aim to support the adoption and acceleration of electric vehicles, one charger at a time. So if you need a design-led, future-proofed EV charger, contact us here at Wallbox, and together we will create a sustainable and greener future.
Oh, it's a bit quiet, but my alarm is going off. There we go. It's perfect timing, to be fair. I think everyone's had a chance to practice. They know how brutal it was last week. And lastly, taking place of someone that's dropped out, unfortunately, the first person to put their hand up was Rachel. So welcome, Rachel.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Your 60 seconds starts now.
Hello, I'm Rachel. I run Morgan Betts & Co Insurance Limited with my brother Joe. We are commercial insurance brokers with a focus on fleets and the hospitality and leisure industry. The reason I wanted to jump in today is because throughout May, June and July, for every policy that we're writing, we're donating a free household policy to an NHS worker. So if anybody wants to take advantage of that, please do get in touch. We are also currently working with a men's mental health charity called Man Down, and I will share the link for them in the chat box also. And then just a little bit of background about myself and my brother. Born and raised in Leicester, home to Stilton Cheese, Walker's Crisps, Kasabian, and probably the greatest football team to ever grace the Premier League. If anyone wants to disagree, we'll take it offline. Thank you very much.
Still got 5 seconds, blimey.
Okay.
On that, next EV Cafe, bring some cheese.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Okay, that's it for Marketplace. Thanks again for that, Rachel, for standing in very last minute and actually doing it well within 60 seconds. Yeah. Right, so last guest speaker today is Scott, to come on and share from a global platform's point of view, as I mentioned earlier, on data from both sides of the coin. Scott is actually a loyal customer to the EV Cafe with a full 8 stamps in his book. He actually panelled the first ever EV Cafe 8 weeks ago when we only had sort of 30 or 40 attendees. So glad to see you back on later in the series, Scott. I'm going to. There you are. Are you there, Scott?
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah. You don't have 60 seconds, you have more like 5 minutes.
You're on mute, my friend.
Just takes time, John. Just for you to say something. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, it's been a while. Fantastic site in the back. What a day today, as I said before. BSOD overload. That's a blue screen of death, by the way. Computer overload of data. Where I'd come from. A bit last minute, I was asked to join in today. Difficult one. A lot of people might not realise I'm not a charge point operator. I'm not a network as such. I'm not a hardware manufacturer. I'm actually the platform that sits behind what Zap-Map shows you as the networks and what it is you've joined in itself. The difficulty with me today in the position that I'm in is that I'm heavily certified up in regards to data. It's an ISO 27001. So I find it quite difficult really to pull together as much information and anonymize it as we've talked about today. We're talking about drivers and vehicle usage, etc., etc. I did, however, put together just a quick couple of slides on our own dashboard, our own user interface when looking at charging infrastructure, which is really quite important, as today we've touched on what we need to know from the vehicles, what we need to know from, if I can get rid of that, and the other side of actually the charging aspects, which Melanie showed us exceptionally well today. So as I mentioned, we're ISO 27001, which means I can't really give you much more than I have today in regards to who's using what, where, when, and how. But at least, as Paul pointed out, we need to understand this data, interpret it in usable information, where it's working, where it's not working, who isn't using it in regards to depots, and who isn't utilising it correctly and appropriately. And actually also to a level of, it was mentioned before, forgetting to plug in a vehicle, using partners, using APIs and other data sets, we can actually alert people to a vehicle being at a particular state of charge with a designated route for the next day, and then it actually does need plugging in and charging with instant and direct notifications and messaging. You can see here from our platform, we've pulled together a number of aspects of that journey, that information. From across actually the pool, the individual charging points and the general overview of the chargers, the amount of fuel that's being used, the kilowatt hours, etc., where the spend is, where the fuel calculation is actually going in real time. As we've already evaluated the petrols and diesels, we're now into electric vehicles, and there's still an amount of information that's needed to make sure we're utilising that fleet appropriately. We can really get down to the nitty-gritty on the actual charging points themselves. And actually, I'll draw your attention here to an ID 1001 parking sensor removal test. This is one of our in-house hardware tests and platform API benches. And we were looking specifically at vehicles sat in a space, whether it's charging, not charging, has it been moved out of the space, for example. And actually something that somebody like Sam, who probably is sat in the back today through Nuke Cargo, would have seen a useful aspect to their charging infrastructure, albeit they're well versed in managing how and when these vehicles are plugged in. So you can see I've sprinkled a little secrecy dust on there, choice of colour. Again, it's the utilisation of these sessions and where it's actually being used, where the errors are, what the actual direct problems are. And again, a slightly deeper dive and a consistency, because we have a TCO, a total cost of ownership, and our ROI, a return on investment in this infrastructure. We know it's not cheap, but we need to make sure that it's actually doing the job that it needs to do. This is business critical hardware, people. We need to make sure it's appropriate for the use case. And again, nice, colourful, brilliant for Paul, I would imagine this. You can see exactly where it is and where it isn't, and what it is you need to do about it. So you can act on it, and you could be reactive to your fleet. So what I've displayed here really is the reporting. But what is more important into this is that it's all good and well talking about all these different analytics, single plugins, and various other aspects. We need to rely on joint ventures, partnerships. We can't think that we know and able to do everything at the same time. And my favorite example of this is that in my own banking life, which is now digital, I don't high street bank, haven't done for a number of years, certain retailers are able to, within my transaction, within their banking statement, I get a full copy of the actual receipt from the retailer, direct, it's already in there. But the retailer doesn't do that, the bank doesn't do that. It's a relationship of structure of people like Cenex or GEOTAB that gives us that information and puts it in places where we might need it. So as Julian mentioned earlier, quite often information or data sits in a folder unused. This puts it in place automatically. But where else is there other aspects of data, and where is it going? We're not interested in tracking the individual people, but we are interested in making sure that our assets are working for us, whether that be the van, the car, or the charger itself. And we do need to join that together. And it is important that it isn't joined successfully. We need to maintain an interoperable platform. Zap-Map displays this expertly over the years and have built out a phenomenal set of statistics and relate that purposefully so that we can make this a better for all of us in regards to our fleet. This is a really deep dive conversation, and we've only scratched the surface today. There really isn't the time to go any further. But if anybody's got any quick questions in the house, I'm more than happy while I'm sipping the rest of my coffee.
Oh, Johnny, I think you're on mute.
Just realised I muted myself. Yeah, thanks, Scott. I will actually keep you on the panel just in case until 2 o'clock, just in case we do have any more questions. And on that note, if Rob Anderson and my Northern counterpart Matthew could also join the call. So we've got a full house now, so everyone's on the call. And we've got 25 minutes really just to, one, touch upon some of the questions that still have not been answered or unanswered. So Matt, if you can sort of direct that. And just have an internal discussion. Feel free for those attendees on the call still and not going out enjoying the sun that want to raise their hand and challenge us and come off mute, then feel free to raise your hand. Over to you, Matthew.
well, we've only got one question in the question box at the moment, and Melanie's put that she'd like to answer this question live. So, Melanie, what are some of the challenges you face from charge point providers?
You're on mute.
Hello?
You're on mute, Melanie.
Melanie, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Start again.
I mean, I think initially when we were starting up, we definitely had challenges with charge point operators because they didn't want to share the data and they didn't see the value. But as our user base grew and people and the charge point operators could see that we added value by highlighting and giving them more visibility, they were actually pretty happy to share the data. There are a couple of exceptions. I don't want to name and shame, but they're too big networks. We're still holding out. But I think that all the other networks we have a really good relationship with, and I think we provide them with value because we obviously give them more visibility, so hopefully increase their utilization, but also we give them back any chats or any feedback that they have that our users put on their points so that they can then act on something. If one of the users says, oh look, the connector's broken, or this is always diced, or various different issues, they can then directly respond to the users and have a direct channel to the users. So I think overall we have a good relationship with the networks, mainly.
Mainly. Actually, do you know what ties in quite well to a question that's just dropped in the chat box? What's the situation around charge point vandalism in the UK?
Cream eggs.
Cream eggs
as well. Yeah, we had an instance of that. It was hilarious.
Sort of. No yoking about, please. Come on.
No, sorry. Tough one to crack.
I definitely think that icing is a much bigger issue. When an internal combustion engine is parked on the spot, we get lots of reports of that. I mean, not so many on vandalism.
Yeah, I've had it happen to me a couple of times up at on the motorway services, and it's quite frustrating, isn't it? There's only one other question. Oh no, there's another question dropped in. So, Melanie, your slides show on average rapids see approximately 2.2 charges per day. Do you know how many kilowatts per average session?
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, I know that the average duration is around 40 minutes. So if anyone wants to do a quick calculation, but say most rapids are still 50 kilowatts. So I would say it's around 35 kilowatts if my maths is something like that. Like, there was one that will obviously be going up as more and more people start charging on the 100 kilowatts and up from there.
There was one question from earlier on that we didn't get a chance to answer, which was from David Watts, and this goes back to your tracking and your profiling. So, is vehicle profiling data and data analysis really about operational vehicles? Primarily, I'll put my teeth back in. Primarily LCVs and some cars, whereas for company cars, where it's driver, owner, user, chooser, it's essentially unnecessary. So, are we finding that generally it's fleets wanting their pool cars and their vans tracking and checked rather than the driver who chooses an EV to save tax?
Yeah, from our perspective at Cenex, a lot of the fleets that we look at are very much looking at the operational vehicles. So it's mainly vans, some of the cars which have an operational need rather than company cars being, which is very much choice and tax driven. But that said, because of the tax changes, we're now getting more interest from companies who have large company car fleets, not more as a way to provide comfort to the company car driver. Because they're making that switch from ICE to electric, they still have range anxiety. So by doing the analysis and providing telematics like Matt does with GEOTAB, it gives them the comfort that actually the vehicle can do what it says it will do.
Brilliant. Well, that's the mailroom out of questions, Johnny, at the moment, to be quite honest with you. So
yeah, well, we've got a couple of hands up from the panelists. So Paul, you were first.
So there was a question, and I'm struggling to remember who it was from. But anyway, so I apologise. Hopefully, you'll recognise the question when I ask it. But there was a question around the public information, because I know you provide a lot of the charge points that are in companies but you can't use them, so dealerships. So sorry, question for Melanie. Do you see a time when companies that have multiple depots and that maybe there's the ability to sort of travel in and out of those depots freely to the public, that companies may monetize their charge points at times when they're not being used, particularly like a van depot where vehicles might be out all day, but you know the charge points are there through the day and maybe they can monetize them? And would you be able to integrate that into your platform and make them visible and available?
Yeah, no, good question. I think that already we have on Zap-Map a category called workplace chargers. So those are sort of quasi-public. Some of them are sort of customers only, and we do have a lot of debates about how we show those. You can filter by it, you just turn them off. But I think yes, we'll have increasingly, it'll become a lot more nuanced. So there'll be different charges. Well, people will have to be very careful on the restrictions and understanding when you can and can't access them. And I think pricing's another thing, that there'll be different pricing at different times of day. There's going to be dynamic pricing. There's going to be lots of different developments, I think, that are coming. But yes, I agree. I think that if you've invested 50k in a rapid charger, why wouldn't you want to try and get people to use it? And I think the charge point manufacturers and the back offices have the facilities to be able to do these different types of pricing.
And one more, sorry, while I'm monopolizing. So I went to see my mum for her 80th birthday at the weekend, and there's no charge point in box. I don't have an electric vehicle yet, but I'm forward planning because I should be driving one very shortly. So there's no charge point in box, but there is one at the local pub, just about a mile and a half away. It's an Alpha. Is it Alpha? Alpha Power, that's it, yeah. So first of all, why would a charge point not want to, charge point provider not want to partner with you and have that kind of publicity, to immediately go? And second of all, do you have a view on what the benefit to people providing a destination charger like that, the Quarryman's Arms in box, is what the value of that kind of charge point is to a retailer of some description?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. One, why wouldn't the charge point operators want to have visibility? They all have visibility. It's about sharing their dynamic data. So yes, right, okay. One wants to be on Zap-Map, so that I agree. Why wouldn't you? But I think there's some questions. Some people think anyway they don't want dynamic data. But yeah, the second point about the charges at the pubs, there's lots of chains which are the one that comes to mind is the Marston pub chain, which Engini have got a relationship with, and they're rolling out rapid chargers like there's no tomorrow at all of those pubs. So so I think, I don't know the exact business model, but to me it makes sense. You're stopping there for a couple of hours, you're charging up. You get a choice between going to that pub in box or a different one. One's got a charger and one hasn't. You choose the one. And also, people don't want to be always driving along the motorway, going to service stations. I think a lot of people will be, going off the motorway and going to a nice pub and charging for half an hour or 45 minutes. So I think service stations might need to look out a little bit for that.
Good, thank you.
So Scott, you had your hand up first, then over to Matt Stevens.
A really interesting point there. John touched on it before. POI, points of interest. We're not going somewhere to fuel up the car anymore. We're going somewhere to continue living our life, and it just so happens that it's refueling while you're doing it. If we can make that attachment, quite often you see charging networks not joining things like Zap maps and super network maps that show a number of different aspect coverages points, because it's exposure. It shows them for who they really are. And quite often interoperability is a big piece of that. They think that they do need to develop this closed network to maintain profitability. Quite often you see these retirement portfolios built out. Certainly the UK is a good example of that. But you're quite right, more pub networks, etc. I regularly, actually, this week have had a two-wheeled electric manufacturer introduced me to pubs and various other networks. And in regards to petrol stations, it's where we don't need to go there anymore from repurposing those pieces of land. Somebody again this week has touched on it. It's further offering is to bring services and other revenue streams to those businesses, which is another side of this data. It increases the services and profitability and keeping these people afloat.
Thanks, Scott. Matt, just before you say something, I have a question for you, Matt. What are you drinking in that stein of yours?
Well, it's 8:30 in the morning, so there's just water. In many hours, it'll be a different liquid.
I know you had your hands raised, so if you want to speak.
So yeah, I was just going to jump onto Paul's comment. So yeah, we're seeing in a lot of jurisdictions increased double use of stations. And so the low-hanging fruit is if you have operational vehicles and driver vehicles. Operational vehicles charge at night, driver vehicles, whether they're provided by the company or not, charge during the day. That's low-hanging fruit. But we are seeing others that are saying, look, we have primary infrastructure for the fleet's needs, but in these time windows, other people can make use of it as long as they pay. Obviously, it doesn't work if you're behind a fence, but we're seeing that all over the world, that becoming far more common. The infrastructure deployment's expensive, so if you can enable others, some people actually are just providing it for free, just as a general broader benefit.
Thank you, Matt. So we've got someone that's put their hand up to want to talk to us. I don't know why they'd want to do that. Colin, oh no, they've done it by error by the looks of it.
Oh, what a shame. We love Colin. Please come back, Colin.
He's put his hand back up. So Colin, welcome to EV Cafe.
Brace.
Incoming. Oh my God. Hello all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Colin. Across the UK, there is, and the phrase I use is carpet bombing of the UK with charge points. Absolutely no logic whatsoever in where these things are going. How on earth we're supposed to know? I mean, where I live locally, there's 5 rapid chargers appeared within a mile. 4 are public sector and 1 is private. And I bet £100 both parties didn't know the other one was putting them in. Without a doubt. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
Well, they've just made their announcement, and one of the challenges we've got is nobody knows how many of these damn things we need by type and by location. Nobody's come up with a basic mathematical model against the timeline of vehicle supply. All we're doing is sticking these things in any space we can find in any number we can, and nobody knows what the overall utilization. I mean, I do a measure of figures and we get the utilization figures. And when we did London, half the rapid chargers are used less than twice a day, and they're only delivering about 9 kilowatts. I mean, that's about it. And when I asked the question, do OLEV have your data? The second question was, you said, yes, they do. The second question was, do they actually use it? Which I doubt completely and utterly they ever use it or understand it. And I think one of the challenges we've got is simply everybody is out there. It's like a Wild West. If there's a spare piece of land, we'll stick a rapid in, and we'll stick the biggest one in we can under the assumption that everybody's buying a Porsche Taycan, because nobody else can use them. I certainly can't use them. And I don't know what will bring sanity to the market unless there's quite a few collapse and somebody buys them out. But I think it's going to be free for all for the next 5 years. There's certainly a number of vehicles to make any of them viable whatsoever. And we're heading for a crash of charge point providers. Was that?
Thanks, Colin. I will just say that I actually only heard one of 5 words, but I don't know. I got the general gist of it.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone did. I think it's going to rely on the home charging. Obviously, people are going to prefer to home charge because it's cheaper and everything. But if that wasn't so encouraged, then the rapid charging network would be vital. So it's just a balance. What do we actually want from our country's infrastructure? Yeah. I, for one, hope there will be some rapids, but you're right. It does seem to be a carpet bomb. It does seem to be a land grab. And I know that from the local authority background, constant calls asking us if we had any land.
Okay. John.
But I mean, I think there definitely are people. There's lots of people out there who've done various models saying, this is the number of cars coming out. This is the uptake. This is how many rapid chargers we need. I've personally spoken to about 10 different consultants who've all got different models. So I think the thinking is being done is not particularly joined up, but that's a different question. But I think also we have to. One of the big myths about EV ownership is people going, oh, there's not enough chargers out there. So it's sort of weird. You've also got to, what happens if there's another 100,000 pure EVs come out in 2020? or taken up in 2020. It looks unlikely because of coronavirus, but that was the forecast. Then you are going to need a significant amount of rapid chargers out there, and you need redundancy. You need to go to a place and there's at least 3 rapid chargers. You don't want to plan a route and come there and then someone charging. So I think, I slightly disagree. I think that there does need to be lots more rapid chargers.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. Over to you, John.
I have long believed, Melanie, when I was in the Scottish Government, we talked a lot about evidence-based policy making.
Yeah.
You have the evidence. I think it is incumbent upon us all to put pressure on government to utilise the data that we have in this country to make more informed decisions. How we do that, I'm not quite sure yet, but within this group of people, 300 odd people that pitch up every week, we have the knowledge necessary to make good use of the public resources that we have available, the money, the people, the planning. And it's about time we all coalesced, joined together and challenged Grant Shapps and government to utilise the very best data that we have, which is yours, to make better use of that precious resource.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Matt, I know we've got one question in the Q&A.
Yeah,
so that one.
Yeah, question for Melanie. And I think this is probably something we might see more of in the future. Are users wanting to book charge point time slots? With the dynamic data, you could offer a platform and users can pay a premium for certainty. I know Sam was mentioning that with us when he was talking about the fuel station and obviously, being able to book a time slot. What do you think on that, Melanie? Do you think time slot booking is something that's going to come?
I think it will come, and I think certainly on the sort of more premium end of the market, people are going to need certainty. My feeling is that having multiple charge points in one location, similar to Tesla, solves a lot of the problems. Because if you go somewhere and you turn up and there's 5 chargers, that would work, I think, for a lot. So I don't see it as the immediate problem. I think, as I said before, I think booking will start to happen, and I think dynamic pricing will start to happen, and different promotion. I think as the market matures, more will come. But I don't see that as an immediate 2020 thing. I think there's some more immediate issues, for example, payment rather than booking, and we would then be dependent on the charge point operators or the back office to provide that information, back. So it's not, we have to wait until the CPOs want to do that as well. So I don't see it top of my list.
Right. I've just had a message from Julian. He'd like to come off mute again. He wants to cover something. He says 20 seconds top. I think when we allow him to talk, I think we should take this opportunity to do something different. Yes. And I think we should all get involved, all take yourself off mute and sing happy birthday. We'll bring a virtual cake out for you, shall we? So, Rob, I can see you're on mute, so take yourself off mute. Matt's disappeared. He's obviously not a very good singer. So I'll take him off mute. Are you there, Julian?
I am, but honestly.
He's running away now.
Too late.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Slow.
Happy birthday, dear Julian. Happy birthday to you.
I think we're all completely drunk.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
That was more awkward than I expected it to be. I think my wife's thinking, what is he doing in there?
Thank you so much, guys. Honestly, I did not expect that. I did not. Well, yeah, I'll receive it. I'll receive it. Can I just say, though, since I began on the whole EV journey, I've done a lot of research and I've taken data from several places. Big shout out to Melanie again. Zap-Map has been a great source for data for us in terms of understanding EV behavior. I want to give a huge shout out to all you panelists on the EV Cafe because a lot of the stuff that I've learned within the last couple of weeks have been very instrumental in my knowledge within the EV sector. And I'd like to possibly put out a suggestion that as we come off lockdown and events start to open up, maybe an EV Cafe in events so that other people can participate in this kind of discussion. I think that the webinar has been great, but I think that, I know for a fact, you know, for example, the likes of what's it called, fully charged. I don't see why there can't be a little corner of EV Cafe in there, and you know, the likes of these beautiful faces participating in it and sharing. Oh yeah, Scott. Yeah, I was thinking that too. So, yeah. Anyway, I just want to say a big thank you to you guys, because the knowledge and the information you've shared to many of us. I mean, I couldn't care less about vans, but Paul, you guys really helped me last week. So, thank you so much.
No, your honesty, Julian.
Anyway, thank you. That's all I was going to say. I spent the last 20 seconds. And thanks for the song. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you very much, Julian. Thank you. Just to wrap up the last sort of 4 minutes that we've got remaining of the cafe before we close, I think I can say this on behalf of the panel, myself and all the special guests. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're in the garden, especially Nigel Casey, I've noticed he's in the garden, that's tuned in today. Thank you. I want to just take this opportunity just to let you know about next week. Next week, we are the topic is TCO, whole life costs. We have special guests from ALD. We have a fleet manager that was ex-Mighty and now with SSE to share some insight from him. A couple of others are still yet to be confirmed. So don't forget to click the link and register your space. And, you know, for that session, and something John Curtis has mentioned in the past, and Sam Clark for that matter, if you can bring a Skeptical Thomas to the next one, that would be fantastic. In fact, a quick thanks to those who have already put their names forward for the terror of the marketplace. We do have still a couple of more spaces, with 5 in each session. In the meantime, and especially if you've missed previous sessions, then please visit the EV Cafe YouTube page, which I can disclose on LinkedIn. Watch previous sessions, and also visit the EV Cafe group that's open 24/7, which you can ask more questions or anything that's been missed today. We'll put the slides on there, so if you can share them, Melanie, Paul, Rob, Matt. I don't know why I said you, Paul, we didn't share anything today. But from last week, potentially.
I'll share them.
I also want to say that this is the audience's show, and if you can let us know via email what you want to hear in the future, especially as we come into June, understand that, you know, the frequency might not be every week. It might not be on a Wednesday, it might not be for the full 2 hours. Appreciate that some people are going to be going back to work and not being able to take that time out. So we want to hear from you, some feedback on how we take this further. And thanks, Julian, for that suggestion for the fully charged. John, you have your hands up. Sorry, I missed you there.
Not at all, mate. You're extremely busy. I just wanted to give a shout out to you. To put this show together takes about 2 days. And Johnny has been coping with young baby, now impacted wisdom tooth, no sleep, and has been totally professional for 8 weeks. It won't happen for the rest of the year, but he's been totally professional for 8 weeks in putting this together. And I have to say, without him and without Matt, I think we would have struggled to get this level of ownership and love. So you, my friend, are special. Matthew?
Thanks, John.
You're pretty lovely in the mailroom yourself.
Love you too, pal.
You guys have absolutely stormed this. So thank you so much.
I'm blushing now, look.
Well done, Johnny. And,
thank you. And I'll just give the opportunity for all the special guests and panelists just to have any last words before we close off for today. Matt Stevens, would you like to start?
I threw it in the chat, but just to John's comment, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be involved with EV deployment all over the world. I really think this EV Cafe is phenomenal. I love the tone. I had a colleague that was on up early watching, and he just said it's one of the best, you know, sort of webinar engagements that he's ever seen. It's not boring.
What we like to hear.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you, and thank you, Matt. You've been really valuable and really good content earlier. I think we all enjoyed that. Found it really interesting. Robert, over to you.
Just to reiterate, normally, as I said at the beginning, I've been at the back with Scott, drinking all the drinks, eating the cake and stealing the sugar. So it's been quite good to actually be in front of the camera for once. Happy to get involved in more. It's a great session. These are great cafes. Hopefully, you know, more of them. And good luck to all.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks,
Last but not least, Melanie.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great just to see a EV community live and kicking during the lockdown, and hopefully it will carry on, and I'd love to carry on being involved and listening on Wednesday lunchtimes.
we would certainly, I think I speak on behalf of the whole panelists here, that we would certainly love to have you on in the future and support the EV Cafe in other sessions. So I think that's about time. Does anyone else want to say anything else before I close the doors?
Just to say, good mental health, everybody. Do something kind for everybody. Reach out if you're
share the love
and talk to us, connect with us, connect with your friends. Don't be a secret mental health sufferer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
you again. And well done, Johnny.
Yeah, and so as the famous Robert Llewellyn says, if you have been, thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys. Take care.